The joy and excitement of Minnesota Vikings football is in the air. To the end zone, yes! Yes! Touchdown! Let's go!
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vikings Pregame All-Access presented by U.S. Bank. Mark Rosen here at U.S. Bank Stadium. I'll be joined shortly by Ben Lieber and Ron Johnson. Final home game of the season. Is it possible? Yes, the 6-7 Vikings facing the 6-7 Chicago Bears. 3 games left for each team, fighting for that one playoff spot. They got to fight off a couple other teams as well, including the Arizona Cardinals. We'll get into that a lot more later in the show. Quite a difference in the way these teams started the season. The Vikings starting 1-5, the Chicago Bears 5-1, and then quite a reversal since then. Since the Vikings have won 6 of their last 7, they're 6-7 right now, and the Bears also 6-7. We'll be checking out the Inactives today as well. A lot of question marks. Certainly a lot of the conversation we'll be having with Ben and Ron centers around Dan Bailey and how the Vikings are going to approach the kicking game. I was watching him in pregame warm-ups. Again, knocking them down from 50 yards plus in pregame warm-ups, but as the late Arnold Palmer once said, everybody hits the ball straight on the driving range, but something happens from the driving range to the first tee. The thing for Dan Bailey today, can he look good when he hits that first tee today, and what kind of confidence will Mike Zimmer have in him in those crucial situations as the game progresses? Before we move on to the game, recap and what's going to happen today, personal note on the passing of a dear, dear friend of mine, the shocking passing of Tom Hanneman, who I had the pleasure of working with at WCCO Television for well over 30 years. We were roommates. He was the best man at my wedding. We shared so many great times together as our careers took off at WCCO as a couple of kids, just trying to hang around the newsroom and do what we could. And I was very happy when Tom went on after WCCO to become the play-by-play man for the Minnesota Timberwolves and working with Fox Sports North on every imaginable sport that all of us took pleasure in watching. The ease in which he broadcast, the ease in which he had his sense of humor, his co-hosts, always making it easy for them. And that's the way it always was with Tom on and off the broadcast set. He made it easy for everyone who he came in contact with. He was never too big to talk to anyone, to find out about their family, to find out how their life was going. And that was the way it was even until I had lunch with Tom about a month and a half ago, and he was being very careful with the COVID situation, and we had a lunch together and reminisced about all the great times we had. But my deepest condolences to his wife, Nancy, his family, Adam and Courtney and Kyle and all the grandkids. It's just really hard to process, and I think Tom would be embarrassed by all the attention he's getting, because I know the way he was. He was very self-deprecating, would always like to have the attention put on someone else. But Tom deserves all this and more, and again, our deepest condolences to his family. So my heart goes out to Tom Hanneman's family today. Well, no easy way to move on from that, but we're going to do so as we move ahead to the preview of the Vikings-Bears game here at U.S. Bank Stadium. As I just said, it's the final home game of the season for Minnesota. Normally here at U.S. Bank, of course, we celebrate and thank all the great fans who've been in attendance all season, but we're not going to do that this year. So throughout the show, we're going to celebrate our fans. So let's kick off by learning a little bit more about one fan who's been a key part of the atmosphere all season long here at U.S. Bank.
My name is Scott Keaney, and I've been a Vikings fan for as long as I can remember. Growing up and watching players like Randy Moss, or experiencing some of those thrills of some of the greatest games and players of all time, have stayed with me my whole life and been something that I can't get out of my system.
This guy is amazing. Randy Moss is amazing. Randall Cunningham is amazing.
You may not know me as Scott, but allow me to introduce myself as DJ Ski.
The following is a DJ Ski presentation.
So I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and went to all levels of school there, from Horace Mann Elementary to Ramsey Junior High School, before graduating at Central High School. I left to Los Angeles to pursue my dreams when I was a teenager to make it in the DJ and music industry, but have stayed fiercely loyal and down for all of my Minnesota squads. So when I got the call in 2016 from the Vikings asking if I wanted to come be a part of the opening night, it was like a dream come true. They wanted me to come out and DJ that one game, but I was like, let's make this something more special than just, a pregame set and doing a DJ thing. Let's try to turn it into a festival style atmosphere. Let's get the crowd involved. Let's get the players involved. Let's play what they want to play and get them hyped up. And it turned out so well, luckily. I remember getting the call like, hey, that was awesome. If you ever want to come back for any other games, let us know. And I don't think I've really missed any since. I took full advantage and opportunity of it anyways. And I was already going to the games, so it worked out so naturally. 2020 has been a crazy year for everybody. At first I thought it'd be so cool to be in the stadium by myself and be the only fan there. Then I realized how much we really missed the fans. While it's incredible being at these games and playing for the players, I don't think anybody really likes it. It's not the same without fans. It's made me all the more appreciative of the glory days of, when fans were there and remembering what 2019, what 2018, 2017, 2016, and all the years before that were like.
Are you kidding me? What did you do?
We don't know when we're going to be able to get fans back in the building. Hopefully it's sooner than later, but the one thing that I do know is the importance of having the fans, of all of you guys, of even myself out there cheering, of the difference that it makes, of the environment that it makes, of the vibe that it makes, and the fun that it makes. That's what, at the end of the day, this is all about, entertainment, and it's just not the same without you.
Hey, kudos to DJ Ski, who's really trying to keep the atmosphere going here without the fans this year. On top of being a DJ, he's an entrepreneur that has been listed on both Billboard and Forbes, 30 under 30, so that's really cool. He does a ton of great work here in the Twin Cities community, so much so that they made May 26th DJ Ski Day in St. Paul. It's kind of like Ron Johnson just dancing in his basement all alone. Just the music's playing, you'd like to have an audience, but it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, you're just letting it go.
Well, I mean, I got daughters, too, so it's like it's the three of us dancing in the basement by ourselves. But
exactly. Official welcome to Ron Johnson and Ben Lieber. Does a lot of dancing as well, but we're not going to get into that right now. Let's talk about this game. There's a lot to break down. The Vikings and the Bears getting ready here, 6-7, 6-7. We know a lot of other things have to happen, but the Vikings just have to take care of business today. And Ben, let's start with you. And I just want to kind of get your key to the game today. You look at the Vikings' first win in Chicago, what they did well there. Akeem Hicks going out of the game seemed to turn the tide for Minnesota's ability to kind of do more offensively. So how do you analyze what we're about to see here today?
Well, I'm actually going to go against conventional wisdom and say that we need to do less play-action passing and more straight drop-back to attack the secondary. This is a depleted secondary. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we get into problems sometimes going against the Chicago Bears defense when Kirk has to turn his back for the play-action pass. Yes, it may work to throw off the second-level defenders, and it may get those guys to stop in their tracks just a little bit to assess whether it's a run or pass. But more often than not, I would trust our quarterback to look at this defense without turning his back to it. So if he has to get out of trouble, if he has to use his legs that we've seen him use the last couple of weeks, then you can make those immediate decisions now and not worry about a play fake. So I would say more drop-back passing, attack the secondary. Our guys are way more skilled on the outside than they have, and I think we should take advantage of that.
And Ron, as we take a look at Kirk Cousins getting warmed up here at US Bank Stadium, we know Dalvin Cook's the home run hitter, but to Ben's point, should they come out maybe a little more aggressively because of the secondary that the Bears have and the weaknesses they have in that area?
Yeah, that was actually one of my keys is be aggressive. And when you look at what Kirk Cousins can do, and I'm going to piggyback something Ben said on Fox, the quick game. I am a super huge fan of the three-step drop or just one step, get it in the shotgun, toss it out to a receiver. We don't see that a ton. Ben brought up the tunnel screen. I agree with that. Throw it out there. It doesn't have to be a true tunnel screen because that's a little scary when you got guys like Roquan Smith who can blow you up. What you do is you take one step in, you stop, you catch it, you let the two receivers in front of you block. You have a tight end come out and block, and then the receiver has to basically play like, Pac-Man, and he goes down the lane trying to find a lane to get 7 to 8 yards, and then you move the chains. That's the things we're not seeing from this offense. We're not seeing just the easy, quick game stuff that we see with teams like the Chiefs and teams like, the 49ers did it a ton last year. That's the thing. And Aaron Rodgers does it all the time. We cry about how often Aaron Rodgers throws a tunnel screen and they don't call it an illegal block or whatever. You have to do that stuff.
Well, Ben, we saw last week the Vikings kind of do what they wanted to after I think they stalled on the first drive against Tampa Bay. They had it going, everything in their favor, mixing the pass and the run with Dalvin Cook. At the same time, you can't ignore what Dalvin Cook brings to this offense and what he can do, even against the Bears team that's really tough to run against for him.
Yeah, and I think that you go back to what we did last week is we did mix up the inside run versus the outside run, and we hit the perimeter on those guys. And I think you can do a little bit, kind of a similar approach in the run game is I don't think you have to run right at these guys and really, pound your head against the wall. I mean, this is a really stout interior defensive front. And so I do think that we can do some stuff on the perimeter, get those guys running laterally, and again, to piggyback off the piggyback of what Ron was talking about, sometimes the quick screen and the quick throw to the outside is basically a run. If you throw that ball behind the line of scrimmage, yes it's a pass with the ball going forward, but it acts like a run. It keeps the defense more honest. I think a run game in our offense overall has to be a little bit more creative on first and second down.
And let's face it, Ron, this Bears team is so different. If they have to come from behind, and if they get the lead, they can tee it up and they come after you. And they're really aggressive. And one of the issues they had, and why they were 1-6 or whatever they were on the last before they finally won against Houston last week, they were getting behind, and they just were not a good catch-up team. They were all messed up at quarterback.
Yeah, they started out hot. Everybody thought this was going to be another 10-win season for them, 11-win season. And then, again, they lost. So you win 5, you lose 5. It's pretty simple to do. And then when you look at what, like Ben said, to piggyback off the piggyback, what they're doing with Trubisky is that. It's getting out extended handoffs. You have a guy by the name of Allen Robinson who is humongous. He's tall, he's big, he's strong. They like him on an island. You also have a guy by the name of Cordero Patterson. Doesn't run great routes, but if you get the ball to him quick, he now becomes a runner, and that's what he does best is run with the ball. You'll see them dump it off to him real quick on like a bubble. You'll see him run a screen. You'll see him on a jet toss where they just toss it right up to in front of him, which is a pass. I think it's a run, but they call it a pass. Those are the extended handoffs that we see from this offense.
Well, and they found their tight ends the last couple of weeks. Last week against the Texans alone, they had 11 targets to their tight ends, and Cole Kmet the last 2 games has had 14 targets. So I think they've realized that, even though we get our quarterback outside the pocket, we're not always looking for a deep shot down the field or a deep over route. We can dump it off to our tight ends. They're athletic. They're big-bodied guys that have a lot of range, and they can pick up first downs. They can move the chains, and that's what I think all this offense is looking to do.
Well, if they kick the ball to Cordero Patterson, I think Mike Zimmer might run on the field and try to tackle him. That's what happened in Chicago. We look at Flash right there. Let's talk about the comparison between, you mentioned Allen Robinson and Justin Jefferson, the kind of seasons they're having and the kind of styles that they play with, Ron, being a former wide receiver yourself here.
Yeah, well, when you look at A-Rob, he's big. He came from Penn State, Detroit kid, so love him. I've been watching him since he was in high school. And when you look at a kid like this, just the size, they run different routes, though. Allen's going to give you the comebacks. He's going to give you the digs. He's going to give you the curls. Justin is going to give you what we saw last week, the post corners, where you can put a guy on skates and just make him miss. Justin also is a little bit more explosive, where Allen is going to be a jump ball guy. So they're both doing well. You see, of course, more catches. Why? Because he's the focal point, whereas Justin's sharing the targets with Adam Thielen. And so that's what you're getting out of these two receivers. They're both definitely good, and Jefferson's definitely more explosive. You look at the explosion, the explosive plays. He's right up there with Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen in the top receivers in the NFL, and then 128 targets. Like I said, he is their focal point. That's who they're going after.
And Ben, when you talk about Jefferson, we watched Diggs blow up again last night. Everyone's, I think, look, it was a win-win.
Yeah,
the Vikings are very happy, and Diggs is blowing up with Josh Allen. When you look at Justin Jefferson, anyone come to mind as far as a comparison, his rookie season and where he's going? What do you like about him?
As far as comparisons rookie season, people are comparing him to some of the greats, when you just look at statistically. But, you look at the skill that he possesses. He's just been absolutely phenomenal with just his route setup. Coming off the line is not always just a speed burst. It's a hey, I'm going to set this guy up. I know what coverage they're in. I know how to attack the safety. I think he's phenomenal with his shoulders and his eyes, kind of showing one thing and deceptively doing another. And he's got a great ability after the catch. So he really is right now the total package. And I'll go back just a second ago with Allen Robinson, the comparison. Mm-hmm. I think they're very similar. I have a ton of respect for Robinson. I just feel bad for him because he's stuck behind some subpar quarterbacks. I mean, I think he has the ability to be as explosive. I think his numbers could be better and right up there with Justin Jefferson. It's just, to Ron's point, they can't get him the ball deep down the field. He has to run those comebacks and those intermediate routes. But that guy in the open field and his run after catch is phenomenal. So he's absolutely a threat in this game.
Well, let's look at the big reveal with Justin Jefferson. Keep in mind, he wasn't even a factor the first 2 games. So he's missed. Basically, he was almost inactive without being inactive the first 2 games of the season. There you go. Receiving yards versus single coverage. Justin Jefferson right up there with some of the best, including Devontae Adams and DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson, if not for B.C. Johnson running a bad slant route and a tipped hands and an interception against the Colts, we still might not have saw Justin Jefferson because that was what they were going with. They were thinking B.C. was the guy, we're going to work him in, and then I think that was the tipping point where they're like, all right, the straw broke the camel's back, B.C. you're out, Justin you're in, and then a star was born. But when you look at DK Metcalf, you look at Devontae Adams, these are some of the best, if not some of, they are the best receivers right now in the NFL, especially Devontae Adams. He's one of the best when it comes to route running. You look at technique, you look at feet. Justin Jefferson has the same feet. He has the same eye-shoulder moves to set up a safety. I mean, a safety at the top of the route with Justin Jefferson, normally a rookie rushes it and tips his hat and tells you I'm going to the corner. Justin doesn't do that, and that's what's so special about this kid is when he gets to the top of the route, it looks the same. His post looks just like his post corner, and that's amazing that he's able to do that.
But look, and the thing is, Ben, he wants to be great. You've been around a lot of players who, they have their careers, they find a niche where they are and everything, but you get the sense with Jefferson and his teammates, the way the coaches talk about him, that he has a greatn's aura about him.
Yeah, he really does. He came in wanting to be the man, and I think part of that is just where he came from. He played in a big program. He wasn't one of these kids that just came onto the NFL scene and wasn't used to the fishbowl. I mean, he's used to having people look at him. He's used to being criticized. And I think the benefit is coming into a system where he's got a pro like Kirk Cousins and a pro like Adam Thielen, where those guys are all about the work. They're all about the details of the work. And yes, you can showboat, you can have fun on social media, but you still have to go out and prove it every single day. And I think it's been a nice balance for him to be in a market like Minnesota and to have some veteran leaders ahead of him to show him the way.
You guys were talking about Allen Robinson and Ron Johnson, the quarterback situation. It's hard to believe on this very field that Nick Foles won the Super Bowl MVP award against the New England Patriots, and where his career has gone and hasn't gone, even before the injury against the Vikings, that Foles was really struggling and trying to find his niche. I mean, we're thinking he got paid, and you're thinking this guy is going to be the next big thing for many, many years to come after what happened in Philadelphia.
Yeah, again, he played with house money in Philly, so when all of a sudden you have to come in, you can go all in with anything you want. You can have 2-7 offsuit. You can have 3-3 up against pocket aces. He was just pushing all his chips to the center, and it paid off. He won. But the reason why he ended up in Chicago and is starting is John DeFilippo. John DeFilippo was in Philly.
That's right.
John DeFilippo liked him in Philly. So he went to Nagy and said, hey, let's get this kid here. I can get him to go. Well, what are they doing? The problem is you don't have the same weapons in Philly. You don't have the same abilities in Philly that you had in Philly that you have in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so DeFilippo, the same struggles he had with the Vikings, he's having the same struggles here in Chicago. It's just not working out the way they had to get it going. So, I mean, like Ben said, I feel bad for Allen Robinson because he was in Jacksonville as well, and he wanted out of there because of quarterback play, and now you end up in another quarterback wasteland. So it's just bad luck.
Let's take a look at the inactives, Ben. No big surprises here. Eric Kendricks has missed now his third game, and Kyle Rudolph out with that foot injury. The durability factor for Kyle, I'm sure it's very frustrating for him, but nothing really stands out surprising. I think we heard a couple injuries for the Bears this week. Khalil Mack was banged up a little bit, but he's obviously playing today. Anything else stand out? The fact that KJ Osborne is also not back in the active roster today for Minnesota.
Well, the biggest thing is look at their secondary, and with Johnson and Screen out, that's why I think that you just have to attack downfield. And whether you do that again with play action pass or straight drop back, it doesn't matter at this point. It's just like you have to make the emphasis to attack those guys and attack them early and often. I mean, if you look at the probability of us making plays versus a depleted secondary, they might make a play or two. You don't shy away from it. You go right back because they're not going to make play after play after play for 4 quarters. Keep
going at him is right. Hey, let's check in with Gabe Henderson right now, who's down on the field, and get his perspective on what's been happening. Gabe?
Thanks, Rosie. It is holiday season, and in the spirit of giving, the Vikings have partnered with U.S. Bank to donate over 500 teddy bears to children's hospitals right here in the Twin Cities. In case you want to know how you can get involved, you can go to Vikings.com right now to purchase a teddy bear to be sent to a patient in need. As you'll see today, there will be about 100 teddy bears in attendance displayed at U.S. Bank Stadium. And before those teddy bears make their way to the hospitals later this week, let's hope they can give this Minnesota Vikings team a little bit of good luck against the Chicago Bears today. Last but not least, I got to talk about the All-Pro linebacker, Mr. Eric Kendricks, who was recognized as the Minnesota Vikings nominee for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award this year. This award, which was established in 1970, is given to a player who demonstrates outstanding community efforts off the field while demonstrating excellence on the field. We all know Eric Kendricks, he's not playing right now, but he means so much to this Minnesota Vikings team, but more importantly to the community. Guys, let's do our part by voting Eric Kendricks for this award by going to Twitter right now and using the hashtag WPMOY challenge with his last name right beside it. Guys, we can do our part by making sure Eric Kendricks is the 3rd ever Vikings player to win this award. The winner will be announced during Super Bowl week at NFL Honors right before Super Bowl 55. So, guys, you got a little bit of time, but make sure you vote for EK. Rosie, back to you.
Great point, Gabe. Thank you so much, and congrats, Eric Kendricks. And Ben is a fellow linebacker, and you're looking at Eric Kendricks on the sidelines right now. You look at the injury, you can't will it to get better. I'm sure you go to bed at night hoping you wake up the next morning and you're thinking, okay, it's going to feel better today. I'll be able to do the things I want to do. He's probably been living in the training room, but you can't just force it, and especially with you rely on the quickness and the explosiveness of an Eric Kendricks.
Well, and also it's the power and the force that your calf muscle has to take on. I mean, it's the grounding part of your body that makes contact and your foot pushes off, and when you're leaning against 315-pound offensive linemen, you don't realize how powerful and strong that muscle has to be. So my guess at this point in time is he can run straight ahead. He can. His speed is probably there. Now, when it comes to the strength test, that's probably where they're being much more careful about, and it's probably just not where it needs to be.
Yeah, how do they determine? I mean, they go through a battery of tests. Kind of take us inside the training room, if you would, with Eric Sugarman and company, and they have the sophistication of what they have today that you didn't even probably have when you were playing.
Well, yeah. First of all, they're going to get as many scans as possible. You're going to go in and you're going to get all the scans to see what that soft tissue muscle looks like. How inflamed is it? Is it partially torn? How torn is it? Is it stretched? What's the significance of the injury? And then from there you diagnose and you treat and you do all those things. And again, muscle injuries just take time. And there's a large amount of ice, stim, different modalities, a lot of stripping out, whether it's rolfing, whether it's deep tissue massage to get all that scar tissue out because you don't want to have all that scar tissue bound up in there. So it's intense and it's painful. Yeah, I mean, think about taking your thumb and pushing it down in the middle of your calf and doing that repeatedly. It's a painful sort of deal to rehab. But at this point in time now, my guess is you're 3 weeks out. It's a strength thing as opposed to a healed factor.
Well, he's out. Kyle Rudolph's out. Hey, another reminder, back again this week is the Vikings Fan Cam. This has really been a cool feature. Player family members will be able to virtually see the players warming up. Another way to keep player traditions and rituals intact in this very strange year. Waving from the Dickerson family, waving from a distance, as they say, and means a lot, especially during this holiday season, to connect however you can with your family, and many of us are doing the same thing as we approach Christmas later this week. There's Eric Wilson. Very cool feature, great idea by the Minnesota Vikings here at U.S. Bank Stadium. Well, the elephant in the room, Ron Johnson, is, and this is where I want to talk about Trey. I don't know if you guys were watching Dan Bailey warm up, and I mentioned the idea that he looks great on the driving range right now. Beyond things we can't predict about how he's going to kick. My question to both you gentlemen is, you're Mike Zimmer. How do you approach it from a strategic standpoint? You get inside, not just the red zone, but inside the 50, you start moving the ball. Fourth down decisions, going for 2, all the sorts of things. Is it affected by what has happened the last 2 weeks? Or at the same time, you're trying to send a vote of confidence to a guy you probably are going to have to rely on at some point in this game?
Yes, it definitely is affected by what happened. If it's 4th and 1, you go for it. If it's 4th and 2, you consider the field position if he misses. And that's the thing. Like, if it's 40 or whatever, you might just punt. Like, you don't want to give them a short field. But you also have to go about warm-ups and everything normal. Like, you can't look at Dan Bailey any different than what you did 4 or 5 weeks ago. You have to let him just be him. Mm-hmm. Just like you said, it's like golf. You can't ask a golfer to go out and hit a 90-yard, knockdown, punch-cut fade shot and then say, hey, do this again 50 times. Just let him figure it out. He'll figure it out. He's a pro. He's been in this league for a long time. He just has to get back to what he was doing.
Ben, getting back now to the Viking defense, obviously they started the season with Daniil Hunter, Michael Pierce opted out, Anthony Barr's lost for the year, Eric Kendricks is out. Do you think in a lot of respects, we're having some audio issues here, that Zimmer's done, maybe I'll ask, you got it now? Zimmer's done one of his best jobs, given what this defense had at the beginning of the year, where they are now. What's impressed you about the Viking defense?
Well, I think it's just their ability to battle at this point. Whether it's in-game adjustments, I think that's been the most impressive. Is you have guys that are getting hurt, getting nicked up in the course of a game, and we're having guys that they just picked up off the street 2 weeks ago have to come in and play significant snaps, and they're not gigantic liabilities. Yes, offenses are trying to pick on them, but for the most part, they're holding their own, and I think that just shows you the intense amount of work that they're putting in through the course of the week to get these guys brought up to speed. And then, I would say just even looking at where they're vulnerable in game. Go back to week 10. We were getting picked on early in this game because we were playing a lot of man coverage. Mm-hmm. And then we realized, okay, we know what they're doing. We understand what they're doing. And they quickly switched to more zone coverage, and it was much more effective. So it's the preparation during the course of the week, and it's what they're doing in game and making adjustments on the sidelines.
A reminder that at every Vikings home game, an unoccupied seat at the 50-yard line is watched over by members of the Minnesota Armed Forces. This year, even though, of course, we have no fans at the game, we will continue this tradition to honor all the prisoners of war or those missing in action. All right, let's head back to the warm-ups on the field. About half hour away from kickoff. The Vikings and the Chicago Bears both sitting at 6 and 7. Not doing any scoreboard watching really until later today. The Vikings win this game, then of course maybe they can turn their attention to what's going on in Arizona with the Eagles and the Cardinals. But for now, just the business at hand. The Vikings have 3 games left. The Saints on Christmas Day, and then of course at Detroit to finish off the year. The offensive line, Ron Johnson. I mean, we've seen kind of a growth. We've seen the emergence of Ezra Cleveland, a few other guys. Overall, what are your feelings about the progress this unit's made?
I think keeping Kirk Cousins upright, they were doing a good job. And in the last 2 weeks, 10 sacks. So at one point, they only had, 7 sacks in 5 games. So they were doing a pretty good job. Kirk Cousins was the player of the month. He was doing ridiculous numbers, throwing the ball all around the field. And then you turn around the last 2 weeks. Yes, it was the Buccaneers, and we know how tough their run defense is. But, little things like Antoine Winfield walking up in the box. There's no reason for a safety to walk in the box unless he's going to show some type of pressure or confuse your tackles. I don't know if that's Kirk Cousins. I don't know if that's the offensive line. Should have just put him in the box count. But things like that, we know the Bears do that with their 3-4 looks, and they like to walk the safeties up sometimes to whether it's covering the tight end or they're going to come. But this offensive line has to figure it out. But as far as everything else, I like the run game. I like how Justin Jefferson's come on. I think Adam Thielen in the red zone is by far the best. He's on pace to have an NFL record for touchdowns in the red zone if he can get 1 or 2 more. And so that's the things that I like about the progression of this offense. And missing Kyle Rudolph even, Irv Smith last week. I mean, finally we saw what Irv Smith can do. Mm-hmm. I hope they continue to use Irv. Even when Rudy's back, Irv has to be used. He runs well for a tight end. He can run routes on any linebacker or safety in this league. You have to get him involved in this game more and in the offensive game plan. I even want to see him line up out wide and just catch a hitch. Like, let him make a tight end miss or let him run a little DB over. You have to get Irv Smith involved, and I think that's the next evolution of this offense.
Take a look at Anthony Harris doing some of the last minute. Wow, look at the Irv Smith Jr.
See the face paint on that guy?
He looks like Johnny
Holy
Randall
cow.
back in the day.
That's a full mask.
He's trying to block the sunlight out.
I mean, that's a lot of work before the game there. Irv's having a great time, though, and Justin Jefferson's always pumped up no matter what the situation is as well. I'm sure the fans are as well at home and watching this game and hopefully watching us right now. So we have a little bit of a fan appreciation video we'd like to share with you.
Game day looks a lot different this year, but US Bank is still the home stadium for Vikings football.
I've seen the Vikings play at 16 different stadiums, and I would say by far the Metrodome and US Bank Stadium are the loudest, craziest environments out there.
I definitely miss having fans at the stadium. They bring their own energy to the game. It's very exciting with fans.
I do think that they're missing a little bit of that extra support and that push and that, that telling them that we're here and we're cheering for them. And I do think that they're missing that part. And it's hard.
There's definitely been a mutual, respect, I think, that's been gained of just a lot of people taking for granted even going to the games. I'll say I was one of them. I was just never thought that day would come where I didn't get to do that.
It is definitely a different feeling, and for us to have them back out there with us is going to be something special when that time comes.
There's nothing like it. People can say they see better from the TV, but I don't believe that for a second. I mean, you gotta feel it. You can feel it when you're at the stadium.
We are fans through thick and thin, and 2020, it's not going to keep us away. And I can only imagine what 2021 has in store for the Minnesota Vikings.
To the players, I would say we miss you, we love you, and I think we realize even more now how much we miss being there supporting them.
You definitely don't realize what you're missing until you have to sit out an entire season.
And when you guys are back, we'll get it cracking. We'll start screaming, we'll do the Skull chant, we'll make people jump off sides. Yeah.
Welcome to US Bank Stadium, home of your Minnesota Vikings. Today's Week 15 matchup features your Vikings versus NFC North rivals, the Chicago Bears. Please welcome your Minnesota Vikings Skull Line, presented by Hy-Vee.
Big thanks to the Skull Line here at U.S. Bank Stadium. Mark Rosen back with Ron Johnson. And as we look at the playoff picture, really the picture is focused just in on the Arizona Cardinals as far as the Vikings are concerned. We know what's at stake for Minnesota and Chicago for that matter. They both have to kind of win out to have a shot. But as we look at the playoff picture, the Packers winning not impressively, but they won. And the Saints with a big game against the Kansas City Chiefs later today. Those teams vying for the number one spot. I'm still a huge LA Rams fan, but if you look at what is happening in the hunt, it's the Vikings and the Bears and Ron Johnson. It's about the Arizona Cardinals, squarely on the Arizona Cardinals, who host the Philadelphia Eagles later today.
Yeah, both these teams walking in the building today are 6-7. They both think if they can get to 7-7, they have a chance in the playoffs, but they're going to need the Cardinals to lose to either the Eagles, which can happen. The Eagles just beat the Saints, and then also the Rams. They play at the end of the year, and they have not beat the Rams in the last 6 times they've played since Sean McVay has been there. So it is definitely an opportunity to win this game, and win the next 3 games, and you're in the playoffs. Speaking
of the Eagles, they made the big switch from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts, and Carson Wentz has already said they paid him the big money, I think, which really kicks in next year. I don't want to be a backup for anybody. So, a dilemma that they have there, but the reins clearly now have been turned over to Jalen Hurts, who adds that extra dimension, makes the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, a much more dangerous football team right now.
No, I don't think it's his game. We've seen opportunities where you do finish the season out. Jalen Hurts has been here before. He did this in college. Tua Tagovailoa got hurt. Jalen Hurts comes in, wins the national championship. That's the things that happen. And also the same with Jalen. He didn't play well in a championship against Georgia. Tua Tagovailoa comes in and wins the national championship. So, 1, Nick Saban's doing a great job recruiting quarterbacks. But 2, he's been here before, so he's built for this. He knows I have to play well these next 3 games if I want a shot at being a starting quarterback in the NFL. He was really, really good at Oklahoma, almost won a Heisman. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at what Carson Wentz, who are the teams that could use a high-paid quarterback? And that's going to be the key. Does he want to renegotiate? Does he want to structure it maybe a little bit better for a team that wants to trade for him? And I think that's the next steps. If he's saying he doesn't want to be a backup, there's a lot of teams. The Jets. Do the Jets really think Trevor Lawrence is the guy, or do you want Carson Wentz, who you know you can get something out of? Not to say Trevor Lawrence is going to be a bust, but you really don't know. You don't know what you're going to get out of a rookie quarterback. Yes, he's great. Yes, he just beat the pants off Notre Dame, but you really just don't know.
Let's segue right now into our Mystic Lake fantasy outlook. And for you, Ron Johnson, it's talk about Irv Smith, the Vikings tight end, his explosiveness and his matchup against the Bears from a fantasy standpoint today.
Yeah, the Bears defense is really giving up a lot to tight ends. And so when you look at Irv Smith, and with Rudy being out, Irv Smith is the focal tight end. He's the guy that they're going to move around. He's the guy that's going to motion. In the screens, he's the tight end. He should be running screens anyway, even if Rudy's in. But he's the guy that's going to do some things here and there. I want to see him motion all the way out wide as well and see who they put on a man-to-man. If it's Roquan Smith, I'm putting my money on Irv Smith. And I think that's what is going to be up to Kubiak today. Does he want to use him like he did Shannon Sharp and split him out a little bit more?
And I know Kirk Cousins has a lot of confidence in Tyler Conklin, who emerged a little bit last week in the absence of Kyle Rudolph as well. And he can rely on him. Even on 4th down, he threw him a big pass last week.
Yeah, you watch Tyler Conklin run routes, and at 6'6", he's tall, he's big, he uses his hands, and his wingspan looks like a jumbo jet. So he has the ability to put a guy on his back, reach out far, and keep the ball away from the defender. And Kirk Cousins trust. I think that's the big thing, trust. If you're running a route, Kirk threw that out route or that dig route to him before he actually was open. So he trusts his tight ends to be where they're supposed to be, and I think that's going to be the key for Kirk in these 2 tight ends today.
Well, as many of you know, it's fantasy football playoff time right now, so let's hear from our expert Paul Charchian, who's going to name some players we may want to think twice about starting this week.
Thank you, Rosie. It is fantasy playoff time, and with the rosters mostly locked in, we're changing things up a little bit. Here are some last-minute advice about players who can sink your fantasy playoff teams. Now, these are guys who you would normally start, but you need to show real caution with this week. We begin with Russell Wilson. Forget last week's game against the Jets. They don't count. Prior to that, Wilson had a run of 5 straight underwhelming performances in which he was quarterback 25. 5 straight games. The Washington defense has been great since week 6, giving up just an average of 215 yards and 1.3 touchdowns. Next, at the running back position, show real caution on Clyde Edwards-Helaire from Kansas City. He's always a dicey start, but more so against the Saints. A fantastic run defense that ranks number 1 in yards per carry allowed. Aside from one Miles Sanders long run, they've gone 55 straight games without a 100-yard rusher. Compounding matters, the Saints are elite against pass-catching running backs, which neutralizes one of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's best traits. And then lastly, wide receiver Terry McLaurin has really struggled the last couple of weeks, and long gone is that narrative about just starting all the receivers against Seattle. They've really turned it around. The return of Jamal Adams has really solidified them. Seattle has now held wide receivers scoreless over their last 5 games, and during that span, only 2 receivers have managed to top 60 yards. So there you go. 3 guys that you want to give some extra deliberation to before starting this weekend in these games. Back to you, Rosie.
All right, thanks, Charge. A lot of nervous fantasy football players going on out there in the community today as they hit their playoff season this afternoon. Hey, let's right now take a check out the Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders with their performance. All right, big thanks to the Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders. Mark Rosen back with Ron Johnson. Ron, let's go inside the Viking locker room right now, and if you would, kind of from a player's perspective, kind of tell us what's going on inside the heads of individuals, how they each react to, now we're less than 20 minutes away from kickoff. The coaches ever say anything at this point, or is it all an individual thing or where we're at?
Yeah, no, when the coaches first walk in, you're going to have a quick maybe meeting. They're going to tell you when and where to be, and then after that, the coaches know, go to your locker, do what you do, get ready to go. And as you see when we walk through the locker room, you'll see it. I mean, coming off the field, the players, as soon as they walk in, they see the legends start here. So now your mindset, you see Randy Moss. You see all the former, Hall of Famers, Carl Eller. And then as your Kirk Cousins, you got Frank Tarkenton right above you, almost like a little guardian angel saying, hey, I'm with you. Because we know Frank is a huge Vikings fan. Fran, is a huge Vikings fan, and he sits around and he gets on K-Fan and does stuff. Then you look at Justin Jefferson, you looking at Randy Moss. For Justin Jefferson, we've heard the stories. He's jumped on a Zoom call with Randy, and he backs him. But then this is the time right here. You're walking through. You're taking that slow walk as you head past the training room. And now the goosebumps, the heart pounding, you're getting closer and closer. You can hear the fans. Now it's for real. Like, you don't have time anymore to think about the game plan. Who cares about practice? Who cares about everything? Now is just close your mind, get ready to go. And then, the motto, outwork, outrun. That's what you're doing. And then when you get to the tunnel, that's the time. There's no more time. There's no more practice. There's no more thinking. Everything is set. And these players have done this their entire life. But that moment walking through that tunnel is special. A lot of people don't get to do it. So you thank God. You bless, the moment, the time. Like, this is my time to get out here. And then you just go.
And you have to conserve that emotion over 4 quarters. Not just can't use it up in the first 10 minutes of a football game, which often can happen.
Yeah, some guys can get overexcited. Coaches tell them that all the time. You see guys jumping around, jacked up. You actually see coaches come over and kind of say, hey, calm down. You got a long day. We're going to need you for 4 quarters. But, we've seen that where guys come out too energized. Quarterbacks have said that. I was too excited, and that's why I threw an interception, or that's why I fumbled the ball, whatever it might be. Calm your nerves. Know you've been here before. You're a pro, and now it's time for game time.
The Bears have had success here against the Vikings at U.S. Bank Stadium, so let's take a look at your 3 keys to the game today, and I don't think you can get a clear-cut way of looking at this game and having a convincing outlook about what is going to happen here this afternoon.
Yeah, well, you look at Mitchell Trubisky, you have to force him in the 3rd and 7 to 10, so basically 3rd and long. The 3rd 7 to 10 specifically, why? Because he's gained 0.7 yards, not 1 yard, not 2 yards, 0.7 yards per play on 3rd and 7 to 10. So they just don't have the plays for it, or something's not working with him. Then you look at the offense. Be aggressive on first down. Why? On first down, the Vikings offense has gained 6.7 yards per play. That's first in the NFL. 22 touchdowns on first down. That's first in the NFL. 27% of actually getting a first down on first down, which gives you more plays and not go 3 and out. They're first in the NFL again. So be aggressive on first down because that's worked for them. And then the last one is run, Dalvin, run. I mean, it's simple. I don't have to explain it to you. Dalvin Cook is the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion. Yes, we know Derrick Henry is big and strong and fast, but Derrick Henry can't catch like Dalvin Cook can. Derrick Henry doesn't pick up the blitz protection like Dalvin Cook can, and that's the difference in those two.
And Dalvin doesn't seem to be one that's shying away from the number of carries or the wear and tear, not just for this year but for the future. He's been very open about that, saying, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to take care of my body. I know what I'm capable of. It's not just about 2020. It's about his rest of his career. So you feel confident that he can have that kind of arc to his career right now?
Yeah, everybody said pitch count, but Dalvin Cook beat the doubters. He's like, I don't need a pitch count. I'm fine. Yes, I had an injury. I healed. My groin's fine. I did the stuff in the training room. I mean, Eric Sugarman is clearly he's doing witchcraft or something in there because he was able to get him back, and he's shown no signs of having an issue.
Thanks so much, Ron Johnson. Thank you for watching all season here in Vikings Pregame All-Access. Be sure to tune into Fox 9 for kickoff at noon. Join us right after the game for Vikings postgame live here on Vikings.com. Enjoy the game.
Bears Vikings matchups. It's just fun playing against those guys. That should be a good one.